Alright folks, how are we doing? Welcome back to the Fuck Talent podcast, and I am your host, Mr. Sean Fontana. So I hope we're all having a good day. It's Monday, it's the 30th of May, we're almost into the 6th month, we're almost halfway through the year. Can you believe it? So just a few client shout-outs that I want to do before we get into our topic of discussion. Client Mr. Paul Clausen, if anybody's listening to this, if Paul's listening to this himself, I know he's a great advocate of the Fuck Talent podcast, but if there's any listeners that know Paul, get him involved and let him know that his coach has given him a massive shout out over the weekend at the Edinburgh Marathon Festival. Mr. Clausen ran the half marathon in an amazing 1 hour and 18 minutes, which is a 2-minute personal best for him. And it's also the fastest time he has ran in 2 years prior to lockdown. So, you know, we had a wee discussion on the Saturday. With my clients, I like to, chat over race plan and just get them sort of in the right frame of mind before going into race at these, their main event, their big goal that they've sort of put all their focus and their energy and their time into. And we sat down and we chatted over the race plan, and we said, right, so, maybe looking to go through 37, maybe, 38 minutes for 10k. And, he laughed a little bit, and he was like, in January, before we even started training with each other, I could hardly even break 37 to 38 minutes for 10k as one 10k, never mind going out now and holding that and then doing it back to back. And I said to him, Paul, you've been training so well and so consistently over the last, 4 or 5 months with me that your training is showing me that you're going to run way under 80 minutes. I don't know how far under, but we can shoot for about 118 to 117. I don't think that's out your reach. But, start strong, start, sensible. And then when you get to 10k, then just start pouring on the pace. And he done exactly that. He had a great race, consistent, and executed everything that we thought he could do. And, what he done in training, he replicated in the race. So, massive shout out to Mr. Clausen, one of my online running clients. Another one is Mr. Steve Day as well. He has now broken the 16-minute barrier for 5k. He's now ran 15 minutes and 57 seconds for 5k, and that's also on the track as well, not on the road, on the track. And he has ran... Sorry, that's on the road, my bad, that was on the road, a road relays in Alan Scally's, and it was a 10k that he broke 33 minutes on the track. He's now in the 32 minutes for 10k. He ran that at the Scottish Championships 10k track champs. So a big shout out to Steve Day as well. Again, another guy on the programme that is crushing it, that is, these guys are both full-time workers. These guys aren't full-time athletes that I'm coaching. These guys are trying to manage, just like yourselves who are listening to this, people who are probably full-time workers, probably have kids, really busy mums and dads, trying to just better themselves outside their working hours. That's the type of people that I'm coaching. That's the type of people I'm trying to inspire. That's the type of people that I'm trying to push to better themselves, and not just lay victim to, I don't have enough time. You do have enough time. It's just making sure that you sort of sculpt that time out in your day, and in your diary, you book it off yourself and you get your shit done. You get your shit done to better yourself and to get you on that start line in the best possible fitness and shape that you can, to get the best result for you. So, again, if anybody's interested in online running coaching, by all means, you can get in touch with me, through Instagram, through Facebook. Drop me an email at sean@fontanafit.co.uk. You can go on the website, look at the online running coaching section or the online coaching section as well. One-to-one personal training, I'm completely full there, so I can't take anybody on there. But with online running coaching, I've still got some spaces there. So again, you can pop onto the website, which is www.fontanafit.co.uk. So again, two big shout outs there, Mr. Clausen and Mr. Day. 1 hour and 18 minutes for the half marathon for Paul, and then sub 16 and sub 33, sub 16 for the 5k. Again, this is somebody who works full time, planting trees in the forest, walking thousands of steps a day, and then still goes out the door in the evening to go and put those Ks and put those miles and put those hill reps in. It's inspiring for me to see, because it's I think that sort of that energy is I always say, like, negativity and positivity are just as contagious as COVID. When you're around somebody who's negative, you catch it, and then what it does is it pulls you down to the swamp with them. And then when you're around somebody who's positive and motivated and inspired and just like on a mission, you leave that conversation positive, inspired, fulfilled, and ready to rock and roll. I call it like an emotional transaction. Either people take money out your bank, or people deposit money into your bank. And make sure you try and limit your time around those people that take money out your bank, and make sure you spend time around the people who fulfill you and top that balance up. It's emotional currency. There's a negative currency and there's a positive currency, and make sure you're spending time with those people that lift you up and inspire you. And also, like, things like podcasts, audiobooks, books, when you're on social, make sure you are filling your head. Like the same when you're planting flowers and you're putting the seeds in the ground, you need to make sure you're giving it good nourishment to help it grow fully. The same with your mind. If you're not giving the plants the right nourishment it needs in the soil, then they're not going to grow, they're not going to develop, they're not going to evolve, they're going to die. The same with our minds. If we don't give it the stuff that it needs to grow and thrive and feel fulfilled and purposeful and positive and energetic and ready to take on the world, then how are we going to get ourselves there? We need to make sure we're consuming content that is going to lift us up instead of pull us down or make us compare ourselves to other people. So make sure, just a wee quick tip there before we move on to the topic of discussion. And the topic of discussion today is dealing with failure. And the reason that's a hot topic is I always kind of do podcasts from a personal approach, because that's one thing that you're always going to get with me is authenticity. Some people hate it, and some people love it. I'm kind of like Marmite, where, that sort of honesty and that truthful approach can be quite offensive, can be quite blunt. But at the same time, I feel that it's a short-term loss for a long-term gain. I would rather my friends say to me the truth of, where I'm at, or, if I'm not working hard enough, or they give me a gut check if I'm not sticking to the goals, the things that I said maybe at the start of the year or the middle of the year or whenever it was, and they turn around and go, "Are you still getting that done?" Say for talk's sake, it's somebody who's wanting to lose weight, and they're all of a sudden they're now phoning up a Domino's pizza. I want one of my friends to be going, "Well, I thought you said you want to lose weight." And I know it's hard to hear at the time, short-term loss but long-term gain. It is actually right for you. So, something that's quite close to me just now is dealing with failure. And that is, we get two sides of the coin. If people have been following me on social media, you probably know I didn't have the best of races. I didn't even, you couldn't call it a race. I never completed it. My second ever did not finish. And I was absolutely gutted. It was the night of the 10k PBs at Highgate. It's one of the races that I always look forward to in the calendar. It's, if anybody who doesn't like athletics or isn't interested in athletics, I always say, get yourself to Highgate, because it's electric. The atmosphere, the crowds, everything that's going on, the juggling, the fires, the buses in the middle, and all that. It's a really good event. You get the music blaring, you get the food vans round the side, and it's free entry as well, because it's in a public park. So it's one of those ones, and it's also one of those ones I've always ran well at until now. And this is another wee quick tip, is just like sort of transferring that from running well and running bad. Just because maybe you've ran well over 5 races doesn't mean to say number 6 is going to go well. And just because you've ran bad over 5 races doesn't mean to say number 6 is going to go bad. What we've got to do is kind of like basketball, and kind of like golf and in American football. I was going to say football, but I mean in American football, there's a lot of coaches nowadays that coach their teams to say next play. And next play means like whether you're going for a 3-point shot in basketball and you hit the rim and it goes out of bounds, or it's an air ball and it goes over, or you hit the backboard and it doesn't go in. Next play, boom, right into the next. You need to quickly, short-term memory loss, you need to quickly forget that. You need to get into the play now, because just because you missed it then doesn't mean to say you're going to miss it again. And don't allow the missed shot to now toxify your next shot. So, and the same again with you take the 3-point shot and you get it, doesn't mean to say the next one you're going to get it as well. You could miss that, but it's all about, when you're dealing with failure, you've got to have a short-term memory loss. And there's going to be a lot of people listen to this who definitely went through failure. Whether that's through athletics, whether that's through business, whether that's through relationships, whether that's, finances, whatever it is. Like, we have all faced failure. And one of the things that I put up on my social media is, if you're alive, your birthright is failure. Like, it's as absolute as death. Like, between the day you're born to the day you go, you're going to experience failure, you're going to experience setbacks, you're going to experience, rough times, rocky roads, you're going to experience suffering, you're going to experience loss. That's just life. That is, and that might sound dark, but the more you liberate yourself from that, and the more you understand that is what's going to be part of your life, the less sensitive you are towards it. The more you try and run away from those things, the actual more sensitive you are to those things hurting you and hindering you. So you kind of almost got to be like Teflon, water off a duck's bum when these things happen. But it's easier said than done, because even, me, like I said, I put that post up on Instagram about failing 50 times, get back up 51. Like, I've definitely failed more than 50 times, and I've lost count, and even it still hurts. Sometimes to the point where you fail so much that you kind of, the voices that whisper in your ear start to get a little bit louder and start to come back a little bit more frequently. There's a certain point where, is there a point where you can only fail so much, where you understand that maybe something isn't for you, and you allow those demons and that negativity to completely toxify your mindset. So I failed a lot, and it still doesn't get any easier. It still doesn't get any easier. You still wake up and sometimes you question why you're doing what you're doing, or if, are you getting too old for this, or, is it time to, that quote unquote grow up and stop chasing some sort of boyhood dream. But at the end of the day, like, if something fulfills you and something sets you on fire and something that just runs through your blood, then, I'm a massive advocate in just doing it. We are so busy chasing sometimes the wrong things in life, and I've had a lot of conversations with my clients about this over the last couple of weeks. Is, there's when you get to about 35 to 45, and most of us chase money. We think money's going to solve all our problems, and then we get enough of that, and we're 35 to 45, 50 years old, and we go, fuck, money hasn't solved a lot of shit. I've still got a lot of baggage. My mind's still a bit scrambled. You kind of maybe going into a little sort of midlife crisis, thinking, you're down the rabbit hole, looking up and going, fuck, I'm in too deep now. I can't go back. And I think a lot of us chase a thing that we think fixes us, but ultimately doesn't. And most of the time that's money. Whereas with myself, I actually say no to money on a lot of occasions if it conflicts with my training at certain times of the day where I want to go out and do my main sessions and things like that. And I say no to money. I say no to clients booking in that time, because that's my time booked off for myself. Like the same way they book in time for their selves with me to offload some steam and, feel good and get that sort of physical wellness and mental well-being. I also need my time. You also need your time listening to this. We need to find outlets, and we need to find things that give us fulfillment and purpose. And most of the time that isn't about money. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account. When you're doing those things that set you on fire and give you purpose and make you feel amazing and make you feel accomplished and, you heighten your self-worth and self-esteem, it doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account. You just feel amazing. And that's what, a place we try to get at. And that's why I ultimately, I do personal training, I do my coaching, is because I've got two types of fulfillment. I've got, the running side, but that doesn't bring in any money. That doesn't pay my bills. So I need to do something on the side that will help allow me to then keep one side of my fulfillment while still being able to pay bills and have a life. So, this is where this is very well catered towards non-full-time athletes, non-elite athletes, everyday people who work their arse off but then also train their arse off. Because we've all got 24 hours in a day. Me, you, the guy and the gal next to you. We've all got 24 hours in a day. It's how are you using those hours to get yourself to the next level? And it's not the next level in terms of, comparing. It's how you're going to get yourself to your next level. How you're going to level up. How you're going to get from like the 80-minute half marathon to the 1 hour 18 marathon. How you're going to get yourself from the 16-minute 10K to the 15:57, breaking that barrier. How you're going to get yourself to where you are now to where you want to be. Through the mist of the storm of work and bills and family and, family obligations, you need to book that time off yourself, because it doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account. Because if you raise shit, I can guarantee it doesn't matter how much money's in your account, because you feel like shit. You feel like dog shit. And it's as simple as that. And sorry, pardon my French, but at the end of the day, let's call a spade here. And this is where I'm going to get to that honesty and that truthfulness. Doesn't matter how much money's in my bank account at Highgate. That clock's going to tick and talk at the same pace, whether I feel good or I feel bad. The same with you. The same with everybody else. And it doesn't care about your finances. The clock's going to stop when you cross the line, and it's going to show you something good or something that you didn't want to see. And money just doesn't come into it. So then that's where, and then what that does is it still plays with emotions. So it just shows that you actually, if something drives you and motivates you that you don't even get paid for, it shows you've got a calling and you've got a purpose and you've got something that you want to achieve out with the financial constraints of a job and a salary. So it does mean a lot to you, and it shows that it doesn't matter how much is in your bank balance. If you can chase money all you want, but there's also something there deep down that money can't buy, and you've got to go after those things. And you've got to pursue those things, and you've got to do that until the point where you're ready, where you've wrung out the towel, you've took blood from the stone, and you've really given it all you've got. And only then are you ready to hang up those shoes, those spikes, those trainers, whatever it may be. But yeah, dealing with failure. How so what is failure? I mean, I think failure is different for everybody. Failure is relative to the human being. My failure was that I didn't compete well at the night of the 10Ks. I didn't finish the race either. I went off. I thought I went off too fast. Who knows? But these things happen, and how do we get over it? So, what a DNF is. It's kind of it's almost like in the UFC. You tap out. The pain's too much and you submit, and it's kind of the worst way to go. Sometimes your pride should make you carry on all the way to the finish. But I thought I was flogging a dead horse, and I decided to step off the track and not put endless laps of junk into the legs. So then call it a day quick, and then just get right back to the drawing board really quick. And the best way I feel like I've dealt with failure this time is just getting right back into full training. So the race was on the Saturday, and then back on the Sunday, I just said to my coach, I said, look, bad day at the office. Let's just, flush that one out of the system. I'm still going to go a 2-hour run. I'm not tired. I just had a bad day. Like I thought I went through at the right paces, but ultimately, 5K in, I had nothing left. I wasted my race within 3,000 metres. And I kind of dragged my carcass around another 2k trying to see if it was just a bad patch, but ultimately it was just, it was going from bad to worse like real fast each 400 metre rep. And that these things happen, and a lot of people maybe look at me as a source of maybe motivation or inspiration, and that's cool. But what I also want you to see is, and like if you follow the story and you follow my journey, is that I'm no different to you. I've got 2 arms, I've got 2 legs, I've got a beating heart and a set of lungs and a brain. I'm not a robot. Like, you cut me, I bleed. I've got bills. I've got a wife. I've got a wee pet Simba. We're looking to have a family. I've got a job. Like, I've got all the same things that you've got. Just maybe same but different, if you know what I mean. Like, same problems in a different place, or different financial problems, or whatever it may be. But I've got the same problems. I've got the same demons. I've got the same insecurities that riddle me to make me question why I'm doing what I'm doing, especially after a day like I had at Highgate. Going, you get, like, you say no, Sean, you say no to money to go and do that. Fucking hell, mate. You may as well pack it in then. You can't even get round, 10k in a track, and you're out there saying no to money. You're kidding yourself on. So I've got those insecurities in me as well as you do. You've got your insecurities, I've got my insecurities, I've got my demons that I need to deal with, and you've got your demons that you need to deal with. Sometimes you can overcome them, and sometimes they overcome you. Just sometimes depends on, I think, your emotional or your mental state at the time. So I was, and I'm not going to make excuses, there's no excuses, but I was a bit mentally and emotionally exhausted leading into Highgate, just because I've been going 9-10 months now down in London, literally almost 7 days a week for 9 months. And straight after Highgate on the Saturday, on the Sunday I was supposed to be flying out to America to go altitude training, but because I haven't had my 2 doses of the COVID vaccine, I thought I could have just got a PCR test and just fly across. But probably some of you are going to be laughing at that right now, thinking, what an absolute idiot. But again, I've been so busy that I didn't even check the rules and the regulations for, flying into the US. That's like literally, and don't take me off the hook here. And I'm not taking myself off the hook, is this is all my fault. This is me saying yes to 6 a.m. starts and 8 p.m, 8:30 p.m. finishes. This is me saying yes to, clients Monday through Saturday and online clients on a Sunday. Like, this is me saying yes. This is all my fault, right? So I'm not taking myself off the hook, and you shouldn't let me off the hook either. But yeah, I was so busy, and then also exhausted trying to recharge up for my next day and then the training, etc., that I didn't even think about checking what the COVID status was of getting into another country. So I was looking to do that for 4 weeks, and I was really looking for, I kind of, like, when you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're going, you're pushing, and then when I went to go and apply for the STa, I was like, fuck, they're not going to let me in the country. So yeah, I kind of maybe took a little bit of wind out of my sails or whatever, and I was just like, oh God, I need to wait another, however many months, but again, shit happens, and if that's the worst thing that's happened in my life, it's not that bad. Gain a little bit of perspective, and you get back to work. But like I said, when you're trying to compete at a really high level, you do need to have that emotional capacity to dig and go to a dark place and hurt. And sadly, I just didn't have that day. I didn't have that extra 5-10%, where you just go to a dark place and you just hurt for a little bit longer. Sadly, I didn't have that. And, and my wife was there watching. She brought some of her colleagues across. My coach came across from the Isle of Wight. People were, and I just felt like a worthless piece of shit. I felt like I'd let them down. Stopping at 5k. I could have at least ran it in, and at least they'd have said, oh, at least you finished. But I didn't even finish, so I felt so shit. But then, dealing with that, back out next day, put my shoes on, go back out a 2-hour run, get 18 miles done, and I flush it out the system. And since then, since that real, kicking the teeth, that real Anthony Joshua punch to the solar plexus, like that real, like, it took a lot out of me, like, just more mentally and emotionally, just thinking, what am I doing? You need to get yourself together. And since then, through failure, I've had some of the best training sessions and the best training weeks I've had since 2015. I can't believe it. There's been a complete change. I was speaking to a guy yesterday, speaking to Jake Whiteman on a Sunday long run yesterday, and we're talking about failure, and we're talking about like how Kenyan athletes and Ethiopian athletes and Ugandan athletes, why they run, and then why does European athletes and the sort of Western Hemisphere athletes run. And we were chatting away and we got to the conclusion that the Western athletes that have a backup plan, that if we didn't have running in our lives, we could still go and get a job and still earn money and earn a living. Whereas there's been this sort of story portrayed from East Africa, Kenyans, Ugandans, Ethiopians, where that if they don't run, they don't get fed. So like they need to run. Whereas we don't run because we need to. We run because we want to. We run because we want to. They run because they need to. And then to a certain degree, when they earn enough money, they then start running because they want to, not because they need to. But the general consensus is we run because we want to. So that means that we're out there doing it because we want to, not because we need to. So there's a different motivation there, but we still act. We still stand in the start line, and we still act as if, it's the end of the world. This race, like we're shitting our pants on the start line because we're worried in case we fail. But guess what? What if especially for people who are not full-time athletes and elite athletes who are listening to this, like people like myself and yourself who's listening as full-time workers, who cares if we fail? We're still going back to our jobs. We're not getting any deductions from Nike, New Balance, Adidas, Puma, Who cares if we fail? We're actually in such a privileged spot where running doesn't pay our bills. Running doesn't define our salary. We can run free and we can still fail and nothing happens to us as a human being. Is that not actually quite a privileged position when you look at that? That we need to, we need to stop, putting so much pressure on ourselves to deliver, or we're so scared of failure, or we think failure's so catastrophic that in actual fact, when you run because you want to, there's a different consensus to motivation there. And that is that it's not the end of the world and that it's okay to fail. We can get back up and keep doing it again. We can fail and get back up, we can fail and get back up, we can fail and get back up. Because guess what? It does not affect our salary, or if we're going to be able to eat tomorrow, or if we're going to be able to pay our rent or our mortgage tomorrow, or our council tax, whatever it may be, we're going to be all right. So then it's actually then going, we can take risks. We shouldn't be that scared to fail. That what if I'm not ready, or what if I'm not fast enough? Who cares? We can go out there and run free because we know that it's not going to be the end of the world if we don't put in a great performance. So, I just thought it was actually quite liberating and freeing because I think a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we act as if we're elite athletes and pro athletes, but really, most of us, if we ran bad, our wife or our husband still loves us, our kids still love us, our pets still love us. At the end of the day, we still get our job. I think it's actually okay to fail. I think it's all right to take risks, because at the end of the day, we won't suffer as much because we do it because we want to, not because we need to. And so, back to dealing with failure is, I think the best thing to do is just getting right back up, dusting yourself off, getting back into training, getting a good session under your belt, and it'll be a distant memory. And that was probably a long 30-minute podcast to get to that conclusion. But hopefully I've helped inspire, I've helped people re-engage, I've helped people maybe with the last little bit take a little bit of pressure off themselves and enjoy what they're doing. Enjoy your running, enjoy your training. You do it because you want to, not because you need to. Running doesn't define you as a human being. You define you as a human being. You're possibly a father, you're possibly a mother, possibly, wife, husband, son, daughter, aunt, uncle. These are the real things that define you, not being a runner. And I think we need to take a wee step back and gain perspective and understand it's only one foot in front of the other. And we're going to fail more than we succeed. But failure and losing can be an exciting process because it means that you then start engaging with different ways in which you can get better as an athlete. Failure has exposed your weaknesses, and now you go back to the drawing board and you look at those weaknesses and you make them become your strengths. And then when you get back out into that road or that track or the grass or the trail or the hills, whatever it is, that next race, you're going to be a better version of yourself when you've exploited those weaknesses, when you've addressed them, and you then start turning them into your strengths. And you'll be an absolute warrior to try and beat. Failure is feedback. And it just told you, and it told me, that you never quite get it right this time. And when you dissect it, when you break it down, you can see what went wrong. So then you can put it back together, get back to that training, get back to that grind, and you get it. You might not get it completely right the next time, but you get it a little bit better the following race, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. You keep showing up. You keep turning up. Despite the losses or despite the wins, it doesn't matter. You need to keep showing. You need to show up. You need to show up again. So this is another thing. Like I listened to Kobe Bryant, and he said something along the lines of, work ethic, and it doesn't matter if he wins. He wakes up the next morning and goes back to training. And he said, because then also the same thing happens when he loses. He wakes back up and he goes back to training. Just working in that process, working on your weaknesses, working on bettering yourself. Take that pressure off yourself. Understand, don't put that same pressure on yourself like you think that it's the end of the world if you don't run your personal best or your season's best or whatever it may be. The sun will come up tomorrow. Again, if you're a full-time worker, your salary is not defined by how fast you run. So take that pressure off yourself and go and run free and don't be afraid to fail. Enjoy it and embrace it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and if you feel like it resonated with yourself or others, please share, please like, give it a wee thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast so then you know the next podcast that's coming out. I hope you have a good day, I hope you have a good week, and I'll speak to you soon. These Facebook stories on your page, and it just helps that podcast, that Fontana Fit, community, that, fuck talent community, the community of people who are full-time workers trying to, just maximise their potential, who are not full-time athletes and understand the grind of, the 40-hour work week, but then putting in that training out with your working schedule. If you feel that you enjoyed this podcast, share it, like, subscribe. Hope you have a good week. Hope you have a good day. And I'll speak to you soon.